First speaker this morning is Susan Springer, a very special lady. She's been instrumental in much of our planning for this year's summit. But actually, Susan, back in 2010, had a juried mosaic art exhibition at her Illahe Gallery and Studios here in Ashland. And that really was the beginning of CMA's presence in Ashland. It was a good starter. Susan's has her MFA in she has a Master's of Fine Arts in ceramics, and I know she's done some chemistry. She has expertise in the chemistry of glazes. She gave up or semi-retired from the Illahe Gallery and Studios in 2014 and is continuing with her work, her studio, now called Illahe Studios, in town. So she's not retired, she's semi-retired. She gave up that part of her business. This year, she's been, as I mentioned earlier, instrumental in the summit with some of our planning, but especially the invitational. So I've heard good things about the way that it was laid out, and Susan Springer is our curator, responsible for that layout. Without further ado, I'm going to have Susan come up here. She doesn't have a PowerPoint. She's going to talk to us.
Well, good morning. So I'm Sue Springer. Been in Ashland about 25 years. Really welcome you to the city of Ashland, to the CMA Mosaic Summit. Really thrilled that it is here. It was sort of a serendipitous combination of interest in mosaics, interest in art, increase in interest in visual arts in the city of Ashland and the surrounding areas. As you know, you've been here, some of you have been here several years or several times, that this is a real hotbed of individual artistic expression. We have lots of painters, we have lots of ceramic artists, and now more and more mosaic artists. And I was really interested to hear that there were several people who have moved to the Ashland area that are working in mosaics. So I look forward to you doing more and seeing more that's going on in this area. I'm going to introduce myself a little bit. As John said, I took a sort of circuitous path to get to art and to get to mosaic in particular. And I got a degree originally in foreign language, so I really like language. I like how things go together, how words express what you want to say, which is very much like art and very much like mosaic. I also like quilts a lot, how you put pieces and you make an assemblage of things out of other things. So I was thinking, I got a degree in foreign language. I was going to teach high school, didn't really like the schools, so I wanted to do this, did a lot of other different things. And then I learned about throwing pots. I started seeing people throwing pots. And as we know, when we find something that speaks to us in an artistic sense, there's this huge moment and you go, this is great, I love this. And I would bet that the vast majority of people here have found that in mosaic, if not several other places, where suddenly there's something about that speaks to you, that means something more to you than maybe any other topic, maybe any other art form. So I was a ceramic artist for years. I threw lots and lots of pots. I did a lot of hand building. I do a lot of ceramic sculpture. And then I started making tile. Because the other thing that is interesting to me is balancing the real practical business part of art making with the creative part about it. And I think this is a huge missing piece in our art curriculums in the world, as far as I can tell, is that we go to school or we go to workshops and we learn how to make the thing. We learn the technique, but we don't often know what to do after that, or we don't know how to take that and get that out in the world and rehome that to somebody else that will appreciate it. And there's an important educational process about that to explain to people why this is important. Anyway, to back up a little bit, so then I had the Illahe Tile Works for 15 years. We did a ton of tile. I had a really great staff, and we had something like 50 showrooms across the country. We made lots and lots and lots of handmade tile, shipped it out, wholesaled it out. So that sort of business part really built that business, building a catalog, building a reputation, doing all that billing and bookkeeping and all those things that had to be done with that. But one thing that at some points in life I've sort of had to stop and go, wait a minute, where am I going with this? What's happening with this? And that's kind of what I want to talk about tonight, or this morning, it's not tonight, is that you take this path and you're traveling along and you're finding this and you're doing that and you're learning this and you're moving in, and then suddenly you go, wait a minute, how did I get into this business? Or how did I get into this? Why am I doing this? And so you have to sit back and get all the other distractions out, turn off the computer, turn off the cell phone, think, what is this about this that I really like? And how can I monetize it? How can I make a living doing this? How can I make this part of this work for me? And sometimes you just simply can't. But most of the time you can. You can find a way to make that work. So I sat back and I said, the parts I like about the towel business, I like doing commissions. And I'll talk about commissions in a minute. I like talking to people. I like trying to figure out what they really want. I like taking the problem and making a solution, figuring out when they say, I have this blank wall, I want to do something, or I need to cover this up, or I need to have this message. And I like to figure out a way to say what they want to say in tile or mosaic or whatever it is, the medium that I'm using. And that's the part that I discovered that I really like. The presentation, I titled it Moving to the Next Level, Professionalism and Presentation. So I'm going to try and talk about this next level. What is this next level? And I think where a lot of people come from is you find something that you really enjoy doing, and so you do it. And at some point you find yourself being invited to shows, like this invitational going on, which reminds me, Jill said to tell you that the invitational will be open at 10 o'clock this morning, and it'll be open all day, and then all day tomorrow, 10 to 4. So if you have a chance to get over there and take a look at that, there's still a lot to see over there. So what is the next level? So let's think about that. So if you're all in different places with this medium that we all love, this idea of mosaic. And so where are you? So as you're going to the next level, when you want to become more professional, you have a huge opportunity and responsibility to do the very best work you can do, to put out the very best work in order to increase the level of quality of mosaic art. You may not be ready to go there yet, and that's fine. And then you can kind of disregard what I have to say. Or put it somewhere, put it in the back of your mind for later when you do get to that point. There's nothing wrong with being a hobbyist, absolutely nothing. There's nothing wrong with having a day job and doing this sort of to feed yourself, to recreate what you're doing. Absolutely, there's no problem with that. It's just that if you're going to move into a professional realm, which I believe a lot of you are because you are here, is that it's time to really think about what that means. I want to talk about several different things. One, quality of work. I want to talk about selling. Should you sell your work? Do you need to sell your work? What is the strategy for selling your work? I want to talk about pricing strategies. I want to talk about how you figure out how to price it and how to be consistent with your pricing and how to have sort of a responsibility about pricing within what everybody else is doing. I want to talk about submitting to shows, how to submit to different shows. And I want to talk about some of the logistics, the packing, the shipping, the marketing, and the paperwork, and some of your image issues. So I'll kind of go through some of those things. I'll try not to rant and rave too much about it. But I think it's really important information, and I think that because people come from different places, maybe they didn't get that one-on-one art bookkeeping class, when they were 19. Or maybe they did, and maybe they don't really know it's marketing, and maybe they are really adept at social media, and maybe they're not. So you take what you can from this. Mosaic art itself has kind of a different set, a unique set of challenges. It's not really fine art, it's not architecture, and it's not craft. It's someplace in between there. It has qualities of all of those things. But we've all had this experience where a curator or a museum or a client will say, oh no, that's just craft, or that's just mosaic. That's not really art. It is somewhere in between there. And if we do want to push it to a fine art state, which, watching Lillian Broca's presentation last night, I mean, she's making fine art. And it really is that. But there's a lot of people that would dismiss that because it's the material. It's not oil paint on canvas. What role does the artist have to educate your consumer? I think you have a huge role. Is that when somebody comes and sees what you're doing, truthfully, most lay people look at it and go, that doesn't look so hard. That's not so much. You know, it's just a whole bunch of pieces, you just glue them down. What's the problem with that? They don't really understand what that is. I was working on something recently, and a good friend of mine, I was painting actually, which has been kind of a new thing I've been doing, and she said, oh, you mean you plan it? I said, what do you mean? Of course you plan it. She goes, you mean you plan it before you do it? She's a banker. She's this really high-level consultant. I mean, she's like, I said, well, of course you plan it. If you didn't plan it, it would be awful. She goes, I just thought you just took a brush and started painting. And I thought, oh, that is really interesting because, of course, we plan it. Of course, we talk about composition. We talk about color and line and all those other things that we have to put together. But I think a lot of people don't get that. And I think that a lot of people don't give it the quality that it takes. The other thing about mosaics that's interesting right now is that it's enjoying a resurgence of interest. It's, of course, we all know, ancient. It's been around forever. It started covering up things. They had to cover floors in the cathedrals, or they had to cover walls, and they had all these bits of things. And so that's how you covered things up. You know, you made a floor that somebody could walk on, and what you had a lot of stone around, so you chop and they make stone. And so that's where it comes from, a very, very functional point of view. And so there's still that sort of idea of functionality, which can be incorporated into fine art. But in order for people to understand that we are moving it up into a fine art level. But there's a really good opportunity right now for this generation of mosaic artists to do excellent work and to do extraordinary work, try different materials. I'm loving all the different materials that are in the Invitational right now, the cardboard and the shark's teeth and the strange objects and the found things and the stones and all of these things together, which are a little bit heretical in mosaic art. It's like, wait a minute, mosaics have to be a certain thing. They don't. They can be all sorts of things. Try those things out. But in the same thing, we have to educate the audience about what this is about. You know, this is something that we want to do, which means we really need to do our very best work. And we kind of need to know the difference between making stuff and expressing ourselves. If you want it to be fine art, it's not about making stuff. And it needs to be something that's more communication. And it's fine to make stuff, but you got to be careful about that. Don't present it in a fine art presentation. Don't send it to a invitational show or to a juried show. I wrote, strive to express yourself and communicate through the work. Try to say something through the work other than a pretty picture. I mean, a pretty picture is fine. And if that's what you're doing, that's fine. But try to say something more. And that's kind of where I really like to talk to clients and see what they tell you what they want is not necessarily what they really want. They're trying to say something else, and sometimes you're trying to read their minds, and sometimes you do really good and you hit it. And those of you that do commission work know exactly what I'm talking about. Sometimes you just nail it, and sometimes you're so far off, and they look at that and they say, oh, it's not what I thought it was going to be. And you got to deal with that just as well. You know, they'll say, I want this, this, and this, and this, and this, and you do it. Again, you're trying to interpret what they say into what your style is, and you do exactly what they say, and then they say, oh, no, that's not what I meant. Express your passion, think critically, read everything you can. Read everything about all other art forms. Read about composition and painting. Read about all these other crafts. I mean, everything is the same. Everything comes together. You can learn a huge amount. Go to as many workshops as you can. Attend at CMA. Oh, yeah, you are here, so that means you talk to people. Have conversations with people that gets below the depth of, oh, that is the most awesome thing I ever saw. Try to ignore the when you post something on Facebook or some social media where everybody goes, oh, that's wonderful, that's great. That's nice. I mean, it's great to have somebody loving your work, but you want somebody in your corner. You make some friends, network with some people that'll give you a really critical analysis, that'll really talk to you about it, that will not shy away from pointing out why it's not working or what it's not working. Make lots of stuff. Make it and make it and make it and make it, and put it away or throw it away or get rid of it. And don't make it so precious that you have $50 in materials on this and you have to sell it. I mean, what you're doing is you're doing a disservice to yourself. You're doing a huge disservice to your reputation when you put things out there that aren't great, that really aren't resolved. Smash it up. That's the nice thing about Mosaic. You can break it up and start all over again with it. I am sort of famous for breaking up ceramic sculpture. I'll do these ceramic sculptures and they just don't work and they don't work and they don't work, and I refire and refire and fire, and then I just take a hammer to them. And some of the best stuff I've ever done has been, just turn the head upside down. It's just, you have that sort of freedom once it's in pieces. Also try to ignore the naysayers, the negative. Oh, this is so, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. Because it doesn't get you anywhere. And try to connect with people that really are going to talk to you about that. And I know it's really trite, but follow your heart, do what your passion says to do, and figure out what your voice is. And you can when you really start looking at people's works and you see something that it clearly reflects them. It really is who they are. And they have probably done that 100 times before they got that resolved and that clear. Not that same image necessarily, but that same technique. Try to not get seduced by technique. Like I said, throwing pots. It was like throwing pots. I was throwing pots like crazy. Everybody always does that. Graphic designers do that. It's like, oh my God, put in another thing, another banner, put another thing here, do another thing. Painters do that too. Oh, here's another, new medium. And you get all tangled up in the technique or the new material, and the art making or the creative part gets kind of lost. And you got to really watch out for the technique taking over the process. I've never had any luck making something because it's going to sell well. I mean, I've been doing this since I was 22 years old, and there's a number of things that I did, and I thought, this is going to be great. I'm going to make these, it's going to be a little side business, and I'll make this, and I'll just sell them, and then it'll give me all. It never works. It never works because your heart's not in it, and it shows. And maybe you can do that. Maybe you can make objects, but they're not art, and that's fine if you want to make other things. But don't get that confused in your mind. And I said, build a reputation and build a network. It is shocking how when you're building that reputation, you have that portfolio and you have that work, how that just sort of all falls into place. And then when you do talk to somebody about a show, or you present yourself to a gallery, you have all the pieces. And from a gallery owner's point of view, when somebody comes to me and they have that all together, it's real clear. You know that they've got it. You know they're going to deliver. You know they're going to deliver their work on time. You know they're going to deliver their work what they say they're going to do. Selling your work. So, do you want to sell your work? Do you need to sell your work? Do you have a partner that's got a day job? Do you want to have a day job? Do you want to do that and then do this on the side? That's a decision to be made. That's something that you have to decide if you need to do that. But if you don't put value on your work, it's not worth anything. So don't say, I've got another job, so I can sell this really cheap. That's not fair to everybody else in the business. Or you also can't say, I don't have to do this, so I don't have to be responsible, and I don't have to do what I'm supposed to do this. Make this choice about what you do, but be clear about what you're doing with that in terms of selling your work. There's a lot of different ways you can sell your work. If you really don't want to sell it, look for competitions that are not for sale. Look for museum venues. Look for exhibitions that are just exhibitions. Look for things like that. It's a different sort of a market than sales galleries and things that sell. The invitation here is kind of a little bit in between, and it kind of worked out that way. But, you know, things need, for most of us, you need to sell the stuff in order to get enough money to pay for the materials for the next piece, or to pay the grocery bill, or to pay your rent, or whatever it is you need to do. And if you value your own work and put a price on it, it has a value. It'll have value to the other people. I've played with that a lot with things in the gallery where I put a really low price on it, and then you're thinking, well, this will sell now, and it really doesn't. You know, or they'll go, what's wrong with it? You know, and I always sort of say, I'd rather sell $100 piece than 10 $10 pieces. And it's really, truly easier to make the one piece and sell it for $100. And then it's worth $100. If you price it at $20, it's worth $20. And so think about that. Also, I think a lot of times making the art becomes artists or artisans think that making the art is the process from beginning to end. It's somewhere less than half of the process when you think about it. Because somebody's got to create all those materials that you're going to use. I mean, even if you're going to blow your own glass, somebody's got to get you the materials to blow the glass. Somebody's got to build those glass kilns. So you've got to get all the materials you get from somewhere else. So there's all that material that you have to get from somewhere. And then there's the other half is all of the marketing and all of the getting it out there and all of the trying to present it to the public. You might be economically stable enough where you can just make art and put it, you know, store it in the extra room. You know, I've got way too much stuff, and but we also want to get it out. We want to communicate with other people and have other people enjoy the work that we're doing and appreciate that work that we're doing. So think about that in your pricing strategies, and think about that in your selling strategies. That really is, it's half of this deal is getting it out there, and that's an expensive proposition. If you do decide to sell your work, there's a lot of different options. One is direct sales. You can do online sales. You can sell to friends, acquaintances. You can do house shows, trunk shows, salons, things like that, and that works for a while. But then you sort of wear your friends out, and you wear your family out, and you've kind of gotten everything to them, and they really don't want to come to another house sale and buy more stuff. You can sell to social media, and I think social media is growing so fast that I think online sales are growing much faster. I've noticed in the last 10 years, probably in the gallery, that 10 years ago, when we'd put something online, we do the e-newsletter or Facebook or whatever online with a piece, nobody'd ever buy it. And then as the years went on, you'd send it out to your really good list. You have a really good list of people that have expressed an interest in this work. You know who they are. You've got them, you know, they're a select group. And people would start calling up and saying, I want that. And that happened more and more and more and more until I closed the gallery last year. So it was like more and more that was becoming where people know what you're doing. They appreciate the work. They appreciate the media. And they're watching you. And so when you get something out there that's really great, they're on it. And so I think online is becoming more and more of a way to distribute your work, as you might say, to sell your work. But online stuff, Etsy, Facebook, tends to be more appropriate for small items. And Mosaic is tricky to photograph it well. I'll talk about images in a minute. It's really hard to get a good photo of the work. I really saw that again this year. Getting the photos, they're good quality photographs, but the scale is off. You see a piece and then you see it and you go, oh my God, I thought it was much smaller, or I thought it was much bigger, or oh, that's not what it was. You know, even though you have the dimensions and you have all of that, you just still, you can't really see it. And Mosaic is tricky because of all of the texture and all of the color and the light and all of that, which is important. Galleries are a good option. I'm a gallery owner. I've been doing that for a long time. I come from both sides. I was a ceramic artist, a mosaic artist for many years before I merged into the gallery business. it's a good option. It's a really good option to sell your work. But galleries do a huge amount of work to promote your artwork. Sometimes I've had people tell me that galleries shouldn't take any percentage. I mean, honestly, it's like, and they're truthful, honest, that why should you take any of the money? I do all the work. And you're thinking, I've got rent to pay, I've got utilities, I've got staff, I've got promotional costs, I've got huge expenses to get this out there. And if you sell your work, great, I get 50%. If you don't sell your work, I get nothing. I still lost all of that promotional cost. I've got nothing. And you take your piece home, and then you take it somewhere else, and you can sell it. And I know that it seems sometimes to some people that the galleries are taking your artwork and hanging it for free. But it's not like they're hanging it in their living room and showing it off to their friends for free. I mean, galleries are really trying. And if you help your galleries sell your work, you do your social media, you show up there, you chat them up on First Friday or the art walks or receptions, you encourage your collectors and your clients to come and see it in the gallery, you have a much higher chance of selling the work. And then you can make another one. So you can keep this sort of ball rolling. The other problem I think a lot of people have with galleries is they don't quite get that there's a lot of different galleries and there's a lot of different fit issues with galleries. And if you go to the galleries, visit them, make sure it's a good fit. Make sure that with the work that they're showing there, your work fits with it. If it's a super contemporary gallery and you're doing more traditional work, people that are coming in there aren't looking for your work. Not that, and they probably won't take it anyway. And then you're going to feel bad because they didn't take your work. Go in and see. So look at the other work that's in there. Try and find your niche. Try not to go find a gallery that already has exactly what you do, but also find one that has something that you kind of fit in there with their other artists. Look at their price points. That's real important. You don't want to be way at the top or way at the bottom of the price points. Because if you're way at the top, you make everybody else's look, like they're poor, and vice versa. You look like you're gouging. Everybody else is gouging if you're really low. You can do craft fairs. I did pottery craft fairs for years and years and years. Carried heavy pots, big boxes, weekend after weekend after weekend. And that's another option, but you do kind of have to modify what you do to fit the craft fair. It has to be something more that somebody will take as a gift item, more likely. And maybe that will change as time goes on, where people are probably not going to spend a few $1,000s doing a piece to take home and hang that they're going to buy at a craft fair. First of all, they don't want to carry it around. But secondly, it's just not the right venue. Commissions. I like commissions. A lot of people hate them. If you hate them, don't do them. They're just a nightmare. You got to have the right personality and kind of the right attitude. And most commissions have worked out fine, worked out well. Some have worked out great. I had a woman one time tell me, and that's what I was doing, tile, she said, every time I come in my kitchen, it makes me happy. And I thought, what else could you have? And what could be better than I got paid well? She's happy. Her kitchen looks great. And it's like it's kind of the right fit. It's a very residential type installation. It wasn't anything real cutting edge or anything, but it was really important that for her that it was something she always wanted. It takes a long time to build that reputation. And when you can go, somebody says, I want to talk to you about this, or they say there's a call for artists out for a particular project. It takes a long time to build that portfolio and build all those pieces in that you can go and say, okay, this is how I do business. This is how I do. Here's my commission policy. You write it, you print it up, and when you show up, you've got a printed page, and you say, this is how I do business. And suddenly you've just moved up 3 steps in professionalism, because it says, this is when I want the money. I want 50% ahead of time or 30% ahead of time or however you're going to do it. This is what I do for change orders. This is what I do, how I do business. And they know that you're a professional at that point. It doesn't take long to put something like that together. If you get an RFP or an RFQ or a request for proposal or a request for qualifications, be real clear, be tight, be concise, say what you need to say, check your spelling, get everything really nice in your proposal. I've sat on a number of panels where you get these, and again, I'm kind of preaching to the choir because most of these people here are going to do this really well, but you put something in with typos or bad images, and it just goes. It's pulled out of the stack. You've got one job and you've got 50 applicants. Believe me, if you don't put together a good packet, it's gone. That first round, it's gone. And so you're wasting your time. And you can get feedback from these kind of panels, but it's a little tricky to get it. But people will tell you, listen, I've seen handwritten applications. I mean, that may be a real arty thing to do, but you kind of can't read it. It really doesn't work. Find contracts. When you're talking to people, have a contract ready, where you fill in how much it's going to be, set it up, because if you agree to do something and it's a fairly substantial sum, and then they decide to go bankrupt or they decide not to pay or whatever the problem is, you're in trouble if you don't have a contract. You've got to have a good contract. And there's lots of art contracts out there that you can modify to fit. Set up a budget. Say, when you do your proposal, you say, okay, I show up with 3 options usually. It depends on what the group is. But if it's like residential or it's a sort of a small group or it's a small municipality or something, I'll say, okay, I've got this version, A, B, and C. B is the one I want. That's the medium one. That's the one I want them to pick. But I put the high price one up there where it's there in case they're feeling really flush and they want this and they're really in love with it. Great. And I've had them pick it. They just say, we really like this. And I go, great. I put all the bells and whistles I can think of in it and make it bigger and make it whatever. And then I got the low cost one. If they really are struggling and they can't do it, then you say, okay, here it is. I understand that. I mean, none of us are, independently wealthy where we can say, oh yeah, here's another $50,000 just to throw away. But put that in there. Give them some options, but also balance. If you're going to give them a $10,000 commission price, only do $10,000 worth of work. Don't do a $40,000 proposal for $10,000. Not only are you're gonna really resent it all the way through because you're losing so much money, but you're also hurting everybody else that's applying for that job or that's going to apply for the job in the future. Or when somebody says, well, what did that cost? And they say, only $10,000. Oh, and you want 40 for this? For the next go round or the next thing. So you're hurting everybody that's trying to do this project. Put in schedules. This is when I'll do it. I'll do it from this. I'll have this done by this month. I'll have this done by this month. And meet your schedules. Under promise and over deliver. This is one of the best things I ever learned. Is like, okay, it'll be done by January 2016. And have it done by December. And they're thrilled. They're so happy. You have it done by February, and they're frustrated. Their contractors are frustrated. Everything is a mess. They had an opening schedule. It's not done. It's a big deal. So push them back. No one to say no. If you say, I just can't do this in your time frame. I can't do this. Say no. Because if you can't do it, don't promise to do it. And more often than not, they'll go, oh, okay, well, I really want you to do it. So let me go back to my committee or let me go back to my funders or whoever and see if we can push this out. They'll accommodate you usually. But don't say you'll have it done at a date and then be a month late. It's just, it really hurts you. And in the art world, in this commission world, word gets out. People know that. And so they'll hear about it. Write change orders. Make sure you have your licenses, your permits, everything done. If you're going to do installations, have a contractor's license. They're not hard to get in the state of Oregon anyway. They're not hard to get. Okay, I'm talking way too long, but pricing strategies. This is my main thing I want to say today. Be consistent with your pricing. If you're taking it and you're selling it to your neighbor or you're selling it through a gallery for 50%, have the same, or online, have the same price. It doesn't matter how you do that. Potters are real bad about this. They've said to me 1,000 times, well, they only taken 15% and it's at a craft fair, and so I can do it myself, and so I'm only going to put 15%. And then it's like, and you spend how many hours carting it around? and how many hours unpacking and sitting there at that craft fair, or all those back and forths that you have to do. I mean, the galleries get 50% because they do a ton of work for that. They're opening the doors every day. They're meeting the people. They're talking to them. But have a consistent price, because if you price different prices, you're hurting yourself as well as everybody else. So you say, okay, I have a piece that's worth $1,000, and it's selling in this gallery for $1,000, and I go down to the neighborhood corner craft fair and I sell it for $500. That customer goes, wait a minute, I just saw that over there for $1,000. I'm getting ripped off. And so you're really hurting the people that are trying to help you make a living at this. So be consistent. Just figure out what your price is. There's this old sort of formula. You figure out what your materials are, how much time you put into it, you put it all together and you double it. And that sort of works. You really can't charge for creative enlightenment or something, you know. Don't.
Can you say that matrix once more, because they were juggling pots?
Okay, the pricing thing. You figure out what your materials are cost. You figure out how much time you put in it. And of course, we all know how hard that is to figure out how much time well, I've been working on this for 6 months, but not, you know. Try to guess how much time you put into it, and then double it. And that's kind of a reasonable point to start with. Glass is more expensive than clay, but there's usually less time than in clay making sort of stuff. And again, pay yourself a fair wage for those hours. That time that you have, that you're working, don't give yourself $10 an hour. But don't give yourself $100 an hour either. You'll never be able to do it. Don't underprice it. If you say, oh, I'm going to sell this for $20, and I'm going to take it out and sell it for $20. It's worth, everybody else is selling for $200. You're doing two things. You're undercutting the people that are doing the same thing as you, so you're hurting your colleagues. But you're also saying it's okay for those people that are selling the mosaics over at Target or at Walmart that are paying the Chinese kids 15 cents an hour, or 15 cents a day, I guess, to make these things. It's okay to have slave labor doing this stuff. And it's the same, you're making it the same. So don't underprice, and don't overprice. You know, I know we all think we're great, but you got to be realistic about what people can do. The dilemma of not for sale. If you say, I'm almost done. Not for sale. Try to stay out of sales galleries, because it really doesn't work for sales situations. I've had people also tell me, well, I really want to keep this piece, so I'm either going to put a really, really high price on it or make it not for sale. As a gallery owner, I don't want it, because I can't work with that. I can't pay the rent. If you don't want to put it out there, fine, don't put it out there. Give me another piece. Have lots of stuff. Make lots of stuff. You know, have another piece that you can bring in that you're ready to give up. I mean, develop a policy, and like I said before, know when to say no. Just say, you know, this isn't going to work for me. Galleries are trying to help you. They really are there for you. And sometimes you go into them and you feel like they really don't want. They won't take it if they don't want it. They don't want to sell your work. It's not to their benefit. It's not to your benefit to take it. So the show submissions are kind of another issue. Coming from both sides and of doing both things for a long time, there's a huge amount of work to make these shows come together. I have this master list that's this long for the Invitational. All these check boxes, who's where, what's the price, who it is, when did it arrive, when is it, who picked it up, who unpacked it, what are the packing materials, all of this kind of stuff. It's like I'm doing, TSA or something, or FAA or something. It's like all these different parts. If the show organizers spend a lot of time on the prospectus. We spend a lot of time saying, I want this and this and this and this and this information. I'm not going to ask you for information you don't need. I'm not going to ask you for information just to mess with you and make it hard. And most of this group was great. They really do. Send your submission back in the order it's requested. I don't want to have to retype everything. So if you send in me this information and this email and this information on this document and then your artist statement up here with a bunch of typos in it and this over here, I'm doing a lot of typing. And for this show, we had 38 people, a lot of whom I don't know, and 58 works. And some of it was just nuts trying to get the right pieces to the right people with the right price. So if it says I want your name, then I want the name of this work, then I want the size, and then I want the weight. They need the weight. That isn't an optional thing. There's a reason you want the weight. Then you want your artist statement. Put them all in the same document. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can select it, I can cut it, I can paste it into their file, so when we print the labels, the titles for the show, when I send the info to the insurance company to insure it, when I send it to the press, when we do the catalog, all that stuff is in the same thing. John will tell you when people say, it's this size, and then this, and the size is here, and the weight over here, and then the artist statement is there. It's like, what? Or here's the pieces, and I only gave you the price for one of them, and there's 3 or there's 2 or something. Put it all together. Sit down and look at what they are asking for. Don't send written material in a JPEG. That seems real easy. They get an image and it goes, oh yeah, this is, and so I can maybe scan it, but scanners, it's kind of funny how it'll do that, and it'll make the spelling even weirder than it already is. I have to retype that thing. And when there's 38 artist statements and something, I'm just going to ask you to do it again. Send it as a document file so that we can just cut it, or not cut it, but copy it and paste it and put it in somewhere else. When you send size, send the overall size. Again, if you think about it, before you do the show, you lay it out on paper. We don't walk around with a hammer and go, what if I put that there, and what if we put that there, and then move them around. We lay it all out on paper. So you've got measurements, and when you send the size of the mosaic, but not the frame, it screws the numbers way up, all up. So that's why you want the size, to figure out what's going to go with what. Photos and images. Get professional images, particularly if you're doing jury shows. Don't expect that poor images, your phone images. You look at that and I've had images that I can't tell where the piece ends and this pretty little background and the ferns and the rocks start. And you go, or put it outside and somebody's got their elbow leaning on the table where it's sitting, or, it's like the lighting is terrible. And you look at that and you think, if it's a juried show, you're gone. I mean, there's too much competition to even think about that. Hire a photographer. Get somebody who knows what they're doing. Product photography is different than social media. Yes, Christina?
I've hired 2 photographers and they both sucked.
Yeah.
And I told them, you're filming or you're photographing.
Could you speak up, please? Yeah, we can't hear you.
Yeah, I've gone through hiring 2 photographers, professional photographers, and they both, excuse the language, but they sucked. And I don't understand. Is there something in glass world, or mosaic world, that has a list of photographers that can photograph glass?
Tina has something to say to that, I think.
Yeah, because I've sold for glass artists for years, and one of the glass artists was just an artist, and I had to do all that work. I went to several photographers, and if you get a good product photographer, and you have a bunch of stuff you want photographed, they will give you samples. And I had everyone give me samples, and then I picked the best photographer. Some people said they could do glass, they couldn't do glass.
Yeah, this last one came to me. She says, I'll come to your home, and yes, I know how to photograph glass, and I can't tell you the work I had to do to cover up everything. And I told her I had tents. I had a black tent and I had a white tent. Either way, we're climbing on ladders and sticking thumbtacks in my walls to get the glare up. But then when she finished taking the pictures, she sits down on her computer and she goes, okay, let's tell her where the right color is. And I had to tell her what colors, what hues to do.
Yeah.
I'm not, and this is 2 photographers. It's
Does anybody know of any kind of registry of mosaic artists, art photographers that are, that might be some sort of,
The idea was to talk to other artists
yeah.
and get their recommendations. And,
Well, and maybe, this is where you're networking with these people. You find somebody and you say, who have you used? And what,
I'm asking them, is there any way that people have photographers?
Talk-
Can they have a site that we can go
Maybe
to?
we could come up with a list. And if
Yeah, and I think that's, Corey's a mosaic artist and a photographer, so she'd probably be a really good one to talk to about.
a product photographer.
But how do you find a product photographer?
You Google it and you get these people and you tell them what you want.
But that's exactly the same thing as a mosaic artist, isn't it? It's like you say, oh, I want to do a mosaic, and so somebody says, oh yeah, I can do a mosaic. It doesn't look that hard. I'll do that, and then they come and they make a mess of it.
It's
Yeah,
especially
and
hard
when
with
they're paid for her to photograph my art, but then I'm the one that has to pick the colors that are right. And
Right.
It came out horrible, absolutely horrible. And you could go in the iPhone or the iPad, but when I take pictures with my iPhone or my iPad, they are exactly the color as my work.
So Tina, what else did you have to say?
Well, the people that do, like I used to do the Rosen show, the American Craft Show in Philly that's now in Maryland, I think. And they have a photographer, but the thing is, if you want a really good glass photographer, you gotta ship your stuff to them. They're not, I could have a list of photographers, but you live in Washington and this photographer's in Texas. So that list thing doesn't work on a certain level.
Weighs 100 pounds.
I know, but what I'm saying is the listing doesn't really work on that level. And there are photographers that go to these big trade shows and they will photograph your stuff if you come a couple days over. Earlier they set up a studio. They're professional, they're amazing.
But I think one of the things one thing to do is to talk to see what other artists, who's doing their photo, particularly other artists in your area, and see who's doing their photography and judge from how that is, and have a conversation with them about what was their experience. Okay, so let me kind of finish up here. I got a couple more things to cover, and then we'll do some questions. Another thing that I wanted to point out was the better your materials are presented, the better chance you are of selling. If you send good images, you send good materials, I'm much more likely to get those images out in press. I mean, we did a lot of press for the invitational show. I'm going through these photos. If they're on time and they're good quality photos, they're getting sent to the newspaper. They're going out there, and they're much more likely to get pressed. It is tricky for some things don't photograph well, and then there's no point in putting them, sending those out because they just don't, they don't look great. I'm sorry. Do you have a question?
Yeah, just in terms of photography thing, do you think speaking to local gallery owners who carry this kind of material?
That's another good resource, I think. Yeah, and see how they do their press.
We're all members of the CMA. We could also just get a topic, and all of us all over the world, there are 2,000 members all over the world of CMA. We could all just put that on the site. These are the photographers we have used. Everyone around the world can see who these people are. And if we have new additions, we can add them to the list.
Yeah, sounds good. We'll do that.
So the next thing I wanted to talk about for a minute was artist statements. And this is really hard for people who are moving into the art world to write an artist statement. And they'll say, why do you need a statement? I don't know how to write a statement. Statement's real important. You'll notice in the invitational, people read those statements. They understand whatever your work has some content. What's that content about? What are you trying to say? This is your huge opportunity to present that. And it's a really good selling tool or a good exposure tool. They look at that and they go, well, I don't get this. And then they read it and they go, oh, I see. This is about this, or this is about that, or this is the material that was used, or this is the reason that this is the way it is. Because we all know that we go to a media we don't know. Even we even go to Mosaic that we do know or we think we know, and we go, I don't get it. I don't know what this is about. It's like the person that stands in front of a Jackson Pollock and goes, my kid could do that. Yeah, but he didn't, And, and Pollock did it first, and he did it differently, and he had to have the right, when he did it at the time that he did it in the art world. And trust me, if you tried to do that, you probably couldn't, and even though you think you could. So work on those art statements. Think about what makes you unique and what makes you and your work. What are you trying to say with your work? Life happens. If you miss the deadline, we had several deadline misses. Send me an email and say, or send your show organizer, I'm sorry I missed the deadline, and then get on it and ship it and do it and get your paperwork in. If you do it late, don't over-explain. Don't tell me all these reasons why. Don't tell me how busy you are. You can say I'm busy, but don't go all off onto that because it doesn't really help. And then don't ship it late and then be mad because it didn't get in the show. It's just the way it is. If you have questions, ask. Made a little bit of an issue, a problem with this show. I made the mistake of having all the emails go to Pam because I thought, well, great, I only get all the emails, she will. And the poor woman was completely deluged with them. And then she had to forward them to me, which was my mistake. I should have just said, here's my email address, send me the emails. Last thing is sort of logistics, packing, and shipping. Follow the directions. There's a reason people say to ship it a certain way and to get return receipts. It may be cheaper for you to send it U.S. Postal Service. I had several people say it was cheaper. But trust me, in my experience, it's been a mess. And maybe it's just the Ashland Post Office. Maybe the fact that it had to go onto campus and it had to have a couple more steps really messed up some of those deliveries. When you're trying to get all these things in a tight window. Yes, Pam?
How many of those pieces that during this exhibition arrived in perfect shape? How many were?
I'd say 70 to 75% were on time. We had several badly broken ones.
And why was that, Sue?
Well, there were different issues. One was packing. Packing is huge. Wrapping fragile stuff, you got to double box. You got to pack it really tight. There's things to do that. You just can't. You can't expect them. Who was it that had the? Alona. It was did a really good job packing it up, and the piece itself moved. It came loose inside, and this piece that had all this mosaic on it slid around and smashed into everything else around it. And there are things you can do. You can lay plastic down and then do that foam on top of it, so it makes a form-fitting thing that tightens everything down, and then pack that really tight, and make sure that's really taped up tight so that it doesn't move, and then double box that.
Are there companies that do a better job of shipping that?
You go to the UPS store and they say, oh yeah, we're experts at this. We had one UPS ship, somebody at the UPS store. I wouldn't ship it with them again. It's a problem.
I had the UPS store ship a couple of my big vases and packages, and I wanted it insured, and they said, if we're gonna, UPS said, if we're gonna ship it insured, we have to pack it. Otherwise, we won't insure it.
And you know what? If you pack it, they won't pay.
Right, but they went and they did a fabulous job, and it was the one in Ashland, but they didn't pay.
Well, and that's the problem is all the UPS stores are different. I've been shipping with UPS for over 30 years, and I haven't had an account. I did the totals at one point. I've shipped over $50,000 worth of paid in freight for shipping. I was shipping a lot of tile, a lot of breakable stuff, and I always pack it myself. But then if they break, and I always insure it, but I have an account. You can get an account really easily. Just do it online. And then when you do it, and then when they say, oh, well, I say, I got the packing material. This is my history. And that's why I say UPS, is because when I get on the phone with UPS and I say, this is how long I've been shipping with you. This is how we do it. I can prove it. Then they send me to the next supervisor, and then they go on and off, and they send me some more forms, and eventually they'll pay for it. But you've got to really be on top of them. And I think UPS and FedEx both have gotten much worse recently. They really don't want to handle product shipping.
And the important thing is if something's broken and you're shipping a commission to a place or you're shipping something to a gallery, and the gallery says it came in broken, they better save that packing material.
Yeah.
If it's expensive, UPS will want to come out and look at the packing material and see if they damaged it or if the package was wrong.
So what we asked for this time, and I think it was sort of unclear, may have been the problem with the writing the prospectus, a return receipt, which means you go to UPS, and I can live with FedEx. They're actually about the same, maybe a little bit better now, and say, I want a return receipt. That means
A return shipping label.
a return shipping label. Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, it's different, and maybe that was it. I didn't write that right. Is that so? You go in and they make it all up. They put everything there, but you don't pay for it until it gets shipped back to you. So you're the person that's responsible for paying it. It gets shipped back to you, and you're pay for it. Which means if we sell it, that just goes away. But then also, at the end of the show, where you only have a day to do this, you can do that return. What you call it again?
Return shipping label.
Return shipping label. You take that and you stick that, you pack it all back in the material when it was in, save all that stuff, put that label on, take it to UPS or FedEx, and it comes back to you, and then you end up paying for it. A lot of people were confused and thought, why should I pay for return postage if I don't, or shipping if I might sell it? So that's kind of how that works.
So you mean they ship it without paying it and then I pay for that later?
Now, you ship the outbound, you ship for it, you ship for it outbound.
Barcode. As soon as they run the barcode that says this is shipping, then you get charged.
You get a bill.
But not until then.
So if you send me this return shipping label,
Return shipping label, you make up that label, they take your credit card or whatever, they don't charge it. Not until it actually gets barcode.
so if I sell it and I've got that label, I just throw it away. Then you don't get charged. It's not a problem. I got one more thing to say. John's standing up. Yeah. So, we can talk about that, and I think that was maybe not clear, and I'll tell you, you go to the UPS store or the FedEx store and you ask them for that, they go, oh, no, you can't do that. You go, yes, you can. I need to talk to your boss. Yes, you can. I know you can do that. They're doing more and more and more online. So the only other thing I want to talk about is kind of going back to the beginning and talking about this sort of moving to the next level in professionalism and financial balance. We've got to really stop where you are. And we all are in busy lives, and you've got a lot going on, and you've got this commission, and you've got this project, and you've got this deadline. And think about where you're going. And if you want to go to the next level, how are you going to do this? And how are you going to do your very best work? And how are we going to build this Mosaic community to be the best it can be? And I think that a lot of people are sort of in that moment now to kind of consider that and move forward. So we got a minute for questions, or got a couple minutes for questions?
Anybody have questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to start approaching galleries. 3 questions with that is, how many pieces should I have in my body of work? Should they be all in about the same theme? And how important is a website to a gallery owner?
I'm sorry to give you this answer, but it depends on the gallery. First of all, don't show up with your work and expect them to look at it. Make an appointment. Contact them ahead of time. You've been to the gallery and you've seen it. You know what their work is. You're familiar with what they do. You're familiar with who's the players and when you can do. A lot of galleries have a particular time and they'll review new work. A lot of times people will like only review new work at certain times. If you show up to my gallery with work and say, I have it in my car, I'm sorry. First of all, I'm probably not, my staff is probably there. They can't do anything. As many pieces in your body of work, but they don't have to be in a theme. They have to be in a tight style. You have to say, I've done all of these things in Mosaic, but I'm going to show these. And these are what I'm going to show. This is what I'm presenting to the gallery. These are the price points I'm talking about for these works. Give a little range. Give the reasons why this is together. But I also have this portfolio of other work that I've done that proves that I'm not new at this, that I do that. And what was the third question?
Website, how important?
Websites are important. So when I press something, so it's so great when you say, here's the artist, here's all the stuff about it, here's a hot link, you can go and see their work. It's huge. And when you get somebody that says, oh, I like your work, a client, they're somewhere else, and they can go, oh,
here, oh yeah, I can see more. And then I can see all these other things you can do.
Thank you very much.
No other questions?
No more questions. Our panel discussion is going to start at 10:15.